The morning sunlight spilled across Ethan's suburban living room, but it did little to warm the tension thickening outside his door. Karen, the notorious HOA inspector with a reputation for overstepping boundaries, was already at his doorstep. Her clipboard clutched tightly, she knocked with an intensity that made the walls tremble, as if demanding an answer from the universe itself. Neighbors peeked curiously from behind their curtains, whispering about the inspection that everyone had dreaded. Ethan felt a chill. He knew her rules were absurd, yet she wielded authority as though it were a weapon. The moment Karen forced the door open without permission, his heart raced, not out of fear, but anticipation. Something about today felt different. The air was heavy with the unsaid, the unseen. Karen's eyes scanned the room as though she were searching for a violation invisible to everyone else. Ethan stood tall, maintaining a calm facade, though every fiber of his being screamed against this intrusion. Outside, the neighborhood held its collective breath, unaware that this ordinary inspection would spiral into an encounter that exposed power, pride, and a revelation no one could predict. The first clash had begun, subtle yet explosive, setting the stage for a confrontation that would leave Karen frozen in disbelief, and Ethan silently triumphant, though he did not yet know the full extent of what was about to unfold. By the time she uttered her first complaint about an obscure bylaw, Ethan already sensed that the rules of engagement had shifted. Karen's gaze sharpened as she scanned the bookshelves, the neatly arranged frames, and the spotless countertops, as if expecting rebellion to jump out at her. Ethan's calm demeanor unnerved her. She had faced resistance before, but never the quiet confidence of someone who seemed untouchable. Every step she took echoed in the living room, a mechanical rhythm of authority, while Ethan observed silently, noting each movement, each calculated breath. Memories of past HOA confrontations, neighbors intimidated, fines imposed, reputations tarnished, surfaced, but Ethan had prepared differently. Today was not about submission, it was about revealing a truth buried beneath mundane appearances. Karen flipped a page in her clipboard, muttering about obscure regulations she barely understood, unaware that her intrusion had sparked a silent war. The atmosphere thickened with unspoken tension, each second stretching longer than the last. Then, with a flicker of curiosity in his eyes, Ethan moved toward the window, gesturing casually at the badge hidden beneath his jacket. A subtle hint, almost imperceptible, yet loaded with consequence. Karen's smirk faltered. Something shifted, an almost invisible tremor that hinted at her growing realization. The room seemed to pulse, the mundane transformed into a battleground of authority and revelation, where one simple truth would soon freeze the self-assured HOA inspector in disbelief. Karen's voice trembled ever so slightly, though she tried to mask it with forced confidence. "These rules are non-negotiable," she said, flipping back and forth through her clipboard. Ethan's eyes held a calm fire, steady and unwavering, as if daring her to challenge what was about to be revealed. The neighbors outside whispered among themselves, some peeking through windows, some cautiously stepping onto porches, sensing that today's confrontation was unlike any they had witnessed. Karen, unaware of the badge pinned beneath Ethan's jacket, continued her inspection, her hand tapping on the clipboard nervously. Every action of hers now seemed slightly overcompensated, as though she sensed an invisible weight pressing against her authority. Ethan remained silent, letting her pace and fumble, each word and gesture subtly revealing the futility of her intimidation. Then, with measured calm, he finally spoke, "Before you continue, there's something you should see." His voice was soft, yet carried the kind of gravity that could silence a room. Karen froze mid-step, her eyes flickering to his jacket as realization slowly dawned. A tension-laden pause hung in the air, neighbors holding their collective breath. Karen's eyes widened as she recognized the insignia partially hidden beneath Ethan's blazer, a federal judge's badge, gleaming faintly but unmistakable. Her hands trembled, and the clipboard nearly slipped from her grasp. The audacity of intrusion, the assumed authority she had wielded over countless residents, now seemed fragile against the quiet yet undeniable power standing before her. Ethan's calm presence contrasted sharply with Karen's sudden unease, transforming what had started as a routine inspection into a spectacle of shock and revelation. The living room seemed to expand and contract with tension, each second amplifying the gravity of the moment. Neighbors outside exchanged astonished glances. Whispers now replaced by stunned silence. Karen's mind raced, realizing that her assumptions about control and fear had been overturned in an instant. The clipboard that once symbolized power now felt absurd and trivial. Ethan's composed expression made clear that no bylaw or petty intimidation could sway him. Her prior confidence faltered, replaced by a mix of embarrassment and disbelief. A battle of authority had begun and ended in moments, unseen yet deeply impactful, as the truth of Ethan's status reshaped every expectation in the room. Karen struggled to find words, her authority crumbling quietly in the presence of undeniable legitimacy. I didn't realize," she stammered, voice catching in ways it never had before. Ethan, maintaining a composed demeanor, let her process the situation, knowing that the power of revelation often outshines confrontation. The neighbors, now fully aware of the twist, murmured in disbelief, their prior tensions dissolving into fascination. Ethan finally gestured toward the documents Karen had been obsessively reviewing, now seemingly meaningless against the weight of his position. "These rules," he said gently, "mean nothing if interpreted without understanding the law in its entirety." Karen swallowed hard, realizing her intrusive approach had not only failed but exposed her lack of foresight. The silence that followed was almost cinematic, a pause pregnant with the realization that the game of authority she thought she controlled had been upended. Ethan's eyes, calm yet piercing, conveyed patience, dignity, and a quiet warning: respect is earned, not assumed. The moment, though brief, left an indelible impression on all who witnessed it, a testament to the surprising power of composure over aggression. Karen, now flustered and disoriented, attempted to regain control but found each word slipping into awkwardness. Ethan's calm presence dominated the room, a quiet authority that required no aggression, no raised voice. Neighbors leaned in closer, captivated by the transformation of an ordinary HOA encounter into an unforgettable spectacle of revelation and humility. Each gesture from Ethan reminded everyone present that respect could not be forced but commanded through truth and poise. Karen's once imposing posture shrank under the weight of her misjudgment, and the clipboard, symbol of her assumed authority, lay neglected on the floor. A profound lesson had unfolded: arrogance and intimidation crumble in the face of integrity and calm confidence. The room, heavy with tension moments ago, now shimmered with the silent awe of witnesses, understanding the delicate balance of power and responsibility. Ethan's patience and strategic reveal had turned a simple inspection into a masterclass of dignity, leaving Karen frozen in a mixture of embarrassment and reluctant admiration. Finally, Karen stepped back, her face pale and hands shaking. The absurdity of her intrusion now clear, she muttered a quiet apology, the words barely audible over the stunned silence of neighbors who had gathered to witness the extraordinary encounter. Ethan, maintaining his composure, nodded politely, signaling that the confrontation had ended without escalation but with a lesson indelibly etched in memory. Outside, whispers of admiration and disbelief spread, marking the event as one that would be talked about for months. The HOA inspector, once feared for her overreach, had been humbled by a single, calm presence, the quiet authority of a federal judge who required no theatrics to command respect. The moment crystallized the idea that true power lies not in enforcement or intimidation but in integrity, patience, and strategic revelation. And that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you loved the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.